Okay, pal, you want smash mouth power and efficiency? Then here's your starting lineup. Ford F-Series, #1 for 37 years straight. Talk about a dynasty, baby. Hey, it's game time, sports fans, at the Built Ford Tough Sales event.
Good afternoon, Texas sports fans. I'm Ryan Cox, the Assistant Director of Athletic Communications. We're here with Misty Wilson, the Texans women's basketball head coach. And, it's the off season, but there's a lot of rule changes going on all of a sudden, as the NCAA announced yesterday that men's and women's basketball are going to have some changes for the upcoming season. The main one was normally you're used to playing 2 20-minute halves. Now you're playing 4 10-minute quarters. What are your thoughts on the rule changes for women's basketball?
The ones that they've changed, I'm really impressed with. I really like the way that it's going to change the game, speed up the game. I like the extra stoppage in time, the short stoppages in time that you have the opportunity to maybe resettle your team. You have 4 opportunities now at buzzer beaters, and that's always fun. It definitely enhances the game.
Do you think this will impact the way your style of coaching, your offensive strategy, since you're going to have in 2 20-minute halves, you might get tired towards the end of the first and second halves. Now you have a chance to regroup and re-energize. It's more of a break opportunity. Do you think that'll help your team?
Well, I think, just having the one media in between the quarters or periods, whatever you want to call them, I think that'll actually speed up the game. You'll have basically 5-minute stretches as opposed to 4, and sometimes those stretches can end up being, 5 to 7 minutes. There's a lot of times that those medias actually happen, 2 to 3 minutes after the scheduled media. So I think it'll really speed up the game. The stoppages in time, I think it'll help, with strategy. You'll have to have a few more out-of-bounds plays and side-in-bounds plays. Right.
Another rule that was changed was the removal of the 1-and-1 to the 5 fouls, and then you shoot the double bonus. Is that correct?
It is.
Do you like that strategy more than the 1-and-1, kind of like the high school style?
I do. It puts less of an emphasis on that first free throw, which, a lot of times if, you get fouled, you should be rewarded, and if you miss that first one, you really don't get that reward. But that's a good thing for defense, and it's a good thing for offense. There's good things on both sides of the ball, so it'll really stress on the defensive side playing without fouling, and it'll make the game hopefully less physical. But on the offensive side, you'll have that incentive to go to the basket, get fouled more, and really look to, I guess, get to the rim a little more than we do in our sport.
And you mentioned take away the less physical aspect of it, but then they allow defenders now to put a forearm in the girl's back or place a hand on there as long as their back is to the goal. Do you like that move? I mean, it seems to me like that sort of allows you to be a little more physical defensively.
You can, but that was happening before. I mean, whether that rule was in place or not, that was happening before. The forearm. I think a lot of times they were hesitant to, call an extension as far as extending your arm, and that post play. It's so physical down there, and that's Coach Cole does a really good job of preparing our girls. Down low, that part will still be physical, but to me that won't change the game much because that was happening before, with or without the rule.
Right. All right. Well, a little bit of rules, but it's going to make a lot of impact for the upcoming season. It's going to be exciting to watch, especially for you to watch you build on the program that you took over last year. So we're looking forward to that.
I think it'll be very exciting.
All right. Well, Misty Wilson, the head coach of the women's basketball coach here at Tarleton State, and I'm Ryan Cox, the Assistant Director of Athletic Communications. Thank you. Good afternoon, Texans sports fans. I'm Ryan Cox, the Assistant Director of Athletic Communications, and I'm joined by Chris Reisman, the Associate Head Men's Basketball Coach here at Tarleton State University. Coach, it's never really an off season as a coach for college basketball, and yesterday was announced that there's a lot of rule changes for men's basketball. What was some of them that surprised you when you first looked at them?
Well, not just there was 1 or 2, but there was several rule changes. But I think the biggest ones that stuck out in my mind that I was kind of shocked by was, number 1, that I'm no longer able to call a timeout during a live ball. I mean, as a coach, coaching for a long time, and your guys on the other side of the floor, and maybe they can't hear you saying, hey, call a timeout. I mean, it's nice to be able to, at any time in the game, kind of call a timeout. And so that was surprising. And also the 5-second rule. As a defensive-based program, we think getting a 5-second call, I mean, that rewards the defense. And now you're kind of discouraging tough defensive play, and we like to get up after people. And so those were both, things that I was a little surprised that went through the board.
Right, and also they changed the timeouts that carry over to the second half.
Right.
So they not only not allow you to call a timeout during the live ball, but they reduce
Take
one of your
away one.
timeouts. What do you think the strategy is behind that?
Well, I just think they're trying to make the game more fast-paced and eliminate more stoppages in the game. I know personally for us, very rarely do we use more than one timeout in the first half, and normally, we use one to burn because you can't take one. And so you always want to pile those timeouts for late in the game in different situations. And so now what I feel like they're doing now is they're trying to make this more of a fan-friendly game and maybe more of a pro-style game and make it more fast-paced and friendly for the fans. And like anything, we'll adjust. I mean, like any team, the Lone Star and any team, the D2, we're going to adjust. It's just going to be different because there are so many different rules to make sure our players are prepared and understand.
Right. Another rule that stood out was the reducing of the shot clock from
Yeah.
35 seconds to 30 seconds. How will that impact your offense, if it does at all? And do you think that's something beneficial for the game?
Well, I just think it depends on what type of program you have. I mean, with our program, I think in the past, we like being able to make people work on defense. We like making people have to guard us, and I think we get higher percentage shots the longer they have to guard us on defense. And so I think there's some programs that are kind of, wow, why do we go down to 30? I mean, at one time we were playing 45-second shot clock. And so I just think everything's being pushed towards the pro game. And me personally, I like the differences in college basketball and NBA or pro. I mean, I think that college basketball has its own spot in athletics. And I think college basketball is one of the most watched games and sports in all of the world. And so for us to move closer to that game, yeah, there's a little hesitancy for me, but I can see what they're trying to do. I don't think it will affect us in terms of what we do tremendously, but I think you're going to see a lot of teams maybe looking to go to more maybe pressing a little bit, because now when they break the press, there's only going to be 18, 17, 16 seconds for a team to get into their offense. I can see people doing that, or maybe throwing some zone and mixing defense a little bit more. But it'll be like anything. It'll be an adjustment, and coaches will get used to it, and different teams will approach it differently.
Now, last year, our offensive team scored almost historic lows for points per
Right.
game. So they're trying to speed it up to allow more points per game.
Right.
Y'all are a defensive-minded team. Will this impact your strategy since they're trying to increase the points per game, on
Right.
how you approach the game defensively?
I think you got to go into every game and you got to read how the game's being called. Like last year when we played TCU, I think there was a whistle in the first half, maybe every 8 seconds. I mean, we had 7 or 8 guys with 3 fouls, but then by the time we're playing in the Lone Star Conference or in the national tournament, it's a completely different whistle. And so your players have to adjust, and we tell our guys, adjust to the way the game is called. And as a coaching staff, we'll adjust to the way the game is called as well. And so I think we'll talk about, obviously, these rule changes. There may be things that we implement in our practices for certain situations late in games, but overall, I don't think you'll see us changing, the backbone of our program, the structure of our program, the ins and outs of our program, maybe just certain situations.
Right. And you mentioned fouls in the TCU game. Another rule that is going to be an experimental one for next year will be increasing from 5 fouls per game to 6.
Right.
That will only be in the tournament play. They haven't discussed if that will be in the NCAA tournament
Right.
or in the conference tournament as well. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the idea is a neat idea. Having your best players out there for longer periods of time is a neat idea. I don't like them waiting until the postseason to change it. I mean, I think it's something that should have been implemented maybe in exhibitions, maybe in preseason, non-conference. But now you go from playing the entire year one way, and then when it matters most, they're going to change the rules. So I noticed they're not doing it at the Division I level, just the D2 level. So it kind of makes me feel like we're a guinea pig for some of these rule changes. And I don't like that, because I think, one thing, our players, I feel like, are just as important as any player at any level. I mean, they're all college athletes. They're all here to get an education. They're all here to play college basketball. And so, it's something that we have to accept, and we will accept, and we'll adjust at that time. But there's plenty of rules on there. I'm 14 years, so I don't remember this many rule changes in 1 year. And so it's something that we'll just have to adjust to.
Right. And there was also several little rules where they're going to allow video monitors to adjust or review shot clock violations, if it's a 2 or a 3. So they're trying to increase the pace of play,
Right.
but it seems like it slows it down a little bit when they're
Right.
having to review every play.
It sounds like the quick decision-based plays, they're wanting to make sure they get it right, and that's okay. I think you want to always make sure in a late game situation, who's supposed to be shooting the free throw, or where the ball went out of bounds, or who was off of, or was it a shot clock violation, was it not? Those are important as the game goes on. So I can those are easier to accept. Those don't really, I think, affect the players and the coaches and how we're going to have to coach, and so those are a little bit easier to accept.
Right. All right. Well, I think that's all the rules. It seems like there was a half a dozen over there, but I think it's gonna impact the game, hopefully for the better.
Right.
But it should be exciting to see the transition that's going to take effect for the players and the coaches.
No doubt, and you know these people they're putting a lot of time, and I know they watched a lot of film, and so obviously each rule in its own has advantages, and so hopefully this year, you know, as we adjust to them, the adjustment will happen quickly, and it'll make for a better product out on the floor, and so we'll get used to it. But you know, I appreciate you inviting me and talking about them, and you know, whatever we need to do at Tarleton, we're going to get it done, and we're excited to play next year with the Texans.
Right. Well, this is Chris Reisman, the Associate Head Men's Basketball Coach here at Tarleton State University, and I'm Ryan Cox, the Assistant Director of Athletic Communications. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.